Okay, so Boris has visited British troops in Estonia today, and he was carving up Christmas turkey for them, carving up Christmas lunch, serving them meals, and of course the media was all over it, all there, all the cameras were on, and they were trying to make out that Boris is this benevolent leader, this benign, lovely, charismatic leader that's going to help the army, feed the army, feed the needy. He's going to be almost a Christ-like figure. The amount of sycophants in the media that want to make him out to be this lovely guy, when in reality we know his history, we know what he's like, we know his party's history over the last 10 years. If any of those troops were homeless, Boris would likely walk right past them, as he did on camera, walked past a homeless member of the public. And this is all about maintaining an image, creating an image of a leader, creating an image of a prime minister or a presidential candidate or a president or any sort of leader. It's done all throughout the world. The media that's on side, which is most of the British media, wants to actually paint this portrait of this perfect person, this good leader. And this is what it's all about. It's been done throughout history, all over the world. Whenever there's a new person in charge, would be a king or a prime minister or a president or an emperor or any of that kind of stuff, they want to create this image that this person is good. They will help the needy. They will help the common man, which is largely what the army is. It's made up of common men and women, made up of peasants, poor people, working class people. And they want to obviously do the best for their families and for their countries. So this is about keeping them on side, as well as creating a good image for a leader. This is about pleasing the army. And of course the army, as we've seen in recent reports, recent news articles and things, the army is quite strongly right-wing. There's quite a strong right-wing presence in the army. Cheers. And it's basically, it's just, that's all it's about. It's not about helping. It's not about strengthening the military covenant, which many Tories have repeatedly voted against, including my own MP, David Evanitt, for Crayford and Bexley Heath. It's about keeping the army on side, because naturally any wars that Boris wants to wage, he's going to need the army. And it's about creating an image. As I just said, Boris would likely walk past most of these soldiers if they were homeless in the streets. So what it's really all about is, Christ that's strong, is keeping the British public, because obviously anything to do with the army, just look at how Corbyn got crucified for his criticisms of the army in Iraq and the actions of some soldiers in Iraq and in the Middle East. Anything to do with the army, it's a very touchy subject. It's a very sensitive area. You cannot, even if I've experienced it myself, if you criticise the actions of certain soldiers in certain conflicts in certain parts of the world, in certain points of history, you're likely to be accused of hating the army, which isn't the case. Any leftist who has studied British imperial history, or even recent British military history, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, they will know that it's not about hating the army. It's not about criticising the army or slagging off the army. It's not about hating the fundamental foot soldiers, because by and large they want to do good things. They have good intentions. They want to serve their country. They want to fight for what they consider to be a threat, or against what they consider to be a threat to their country's security, to their nation, to their nationality, to their way of life. And that is very admirable. If anybody who's willing to pick up a rifle, go halfway across the world on a tour of duty and fight for what they believe in, for what they consider to be their way of life, and to protect their family, their friends, their people in their land, I find that very admirable. What I don't find admirable is these warmongering psychopaths like Boris Johnson, David Cameron, Tony Blair, Theresa May, waging wars and then sending people to die in those wars on their behalf. And then it transpires that the war wasn't about national security, because that's the most commonly touted reason, isn't it? It's national security. Then we find out that it was about oil or money or power or toppling some government that our government doesn't like and installing somebody that our government does like. It's about literally, in many cases, literally. If you read Chomsky talks in great deal about this. A lot of military action, particularly by America, it's not about democracy. They pretend like we're giving democracy to people in Latin America or people in the Middle East. It's not. It's about toppling governments that have been democratically elected in many cases and installing people in rigged elections, heavily rigged elections, that America agrees with. We've seen it quite recently in Venezuela when we had an elected government, an elected president who has been effectively ousted. And now we have somebody who's friendly with the US. And this is where the West is very hypocritical, because we pretend that we're democratic. We're all for democracy. You should choose your own leaders. You should be able to hold them accountable and vote them out, of course, unless it's a leader that we don't like. But I'm getting off on a tangent. This is all about Boris maintaining an image and creating an image that he's on your side. That if you have troops in your family, soldiers in your family, and they're away this Christmas in Estonia or elsewhere, that he's there for them. He believes in looking after them, and he doesn't. Boris Johnson has got 5 more years, at least, in number 10. He's not on the side of soldiers, former or present. If they were homeless in the street, as I keep saying, he would probably walk right past them. And of course, nobody is expecting, as somebody has already suggested on a YouTube comment section to me already, nobody is suggesting that Boris, who has millions, hands over thousands of pounds to a homeless person. Simple smile will do. Kind couple of words, a cup of tea, even Jack and Coke. Nobody is suggesting that he does anything like that, that he hands over all his money. Although, of course, if he did, I would become a Boris fan overnight. But he won't. And nobody is suggesting that he should hand over thousands of pounds of his own personal money to someone homeless just because. All we're asking is that he care. Jeremy Corbyn cares for the homeless. Genuinely cares for the homeless. And if you approach the man on the street, as many people have, and speak to him about whatever issues you have in your life, be it housing, be it council problems with your rent, be it problems with homelessness, be it problems within work, he will listen. He will hear you out, and he will say to you what he thinks of the situation, what a potential Labour government could have done to stop it. But now, of course, a Jeremy Corbyn-led Labour government isn't going to happen because we all elected, the British electorate, scumbags that we are, all elected to prioritise Brexit over helping the immediately vulnerable. Now, a couple of people have already said to me that homelessness isn't going to go away overnight. It's not going to be dealt with. Children in poverty isn't going to go away. Brexit is. And yes, you're right. British, poverty, British kids in poverty, homelessness isn't going to just vanish just because Jeremy Corbyn gets in. But he would genuinely have tried. Boris wouldn't. Corbyn would genuinely, when he went on he was on an interview with, in conversation with John Bishop, and he said, if you get into number 10, what's your number 1 priority? And Corbyn said, not one single homeless person on the streets, not one person homeless. And I genuinely believed that was his priority. I didn't believe he was going to achieve it for a second, but it was his principles that made me loyal to the man. It was his conviction and his actual want to help people homeless, needy, destitute, living in poverty. That's what I liked about Jeremy Corbyn. I thought he was one of maybe 3 in all 650 MPs that actually wanted to help, actually wanted to make a difference to the lives of people who are homeless, people who are living on the breadline, living in squalor. Boris Johnson, a lot of the rest of them would just tell you that they want to make a difference because it's a vote winner. Whereas I don't think Corbyn was like that. And this is what it's all about. This media appearance with he wants to go and feed troops in Estonia. He's carving, to use if you excuse the term, carving an image. What he wants to do is make you like him. And a lot of people already like him. People who aren't even Tories like him. Because he's bubbly, he's funny, he's charismatic, which is what Jeremy Corbyn wasn't. He's charismatic. Tony Blair was charismatic, and look where that got us. That's all I'm saying. We've got 5 more years of this crap to deal with. Of Boris kissing babies and shaking hands and giving out, virtue signalling is essentially what this is. And a lot of people on the left get accused of virtue signalling. Oh, you're virtue signalling. If we say, we should make sure people aren't homeless. Oh, you're virtue signalling. I'm virtue signalling to say that people shouldn't be living on the streets right on top of Christmas. That 9 out of a class of 30 children will wake up in poverty on Christmas Day. There's 14 million people living in poverty this Christmas. And I'm virtue signalling to say that that shouldn't be allowed. In the 5th richest country on the planet, that is not acceptable. And somehow if I say that, you're virtue signalling. If I see a homeless man on the corner and I say it's really not fair that he has to sleep in a doorway, while people living and working in Westminster get subsidised food and alcohol on our tab. This isn't subsidised, by the way. This is entirely on me. Get food and alcohol on the tab. If I say that's not fair, I'm virtue signalling. But somehow Boris goes, or I'm going to call him Johnson from now on, because calling him Boris makes him seem like a family friend. That man is not my friend. Johnson gets to go to Estonia, visit British troops, conveniently bring on the cameras with him, and carve up some turkey. And he's not virtue signalling? What do you think he's doing? He's virtue signalling. It's right-wing virtue signalling. Bernie Sanders in America talks a lot about socialism for the rich, and we have it a lot here. When we bailed out the banks in 2008, when the American lenders lent too thick, too fast to people to buy homes. Excuse me. And then the banks collapsed, and we had to bail them out. And then our banks collapsed, and we had to bail them out. That was socialism for the rich. Because all socialism is state involvement. Socialism is the acceptance that capitalism, because socialism and capitalism are not antithetical to each other. They're not opposites. You're thinking of communism. To anybody watching who might be like, socialism isn't capitalism. No, socialism can and does work in capitalism. It works in Europe quite well. In Germany, for instance, some of Jeremy Corbyn's policies are quite mainstream. Nationalised railways, or heavily nationalised railways, and all that kind of thing. They're quite mainstream policies. And yet somehow this is hard left. Nobody has yet to tell me what policy Jeremy Corbyn advocates or advocates that is hard left, far left. Because he's not far left. If you read Marxist theory, I've got Capital upstairs. That's Capital. And I've got the Communist Manifesto upstairs. I've read Marx. And believe me, Corbyn is a mile away from Marx. He might have some of the same core values, some of the same core beliefs, but he is not like Karl Marx. His philosophy is not Marxist or communist. These are words that are just used to drum up sort of fear of Stalinist Russia, where he would round up kulaks, which is rich peasants, if you don't know, and shoot them for not producing grain fast enough. This is all it is fear-mongering. They want you to fear socialism because it's a fairer deal for the working man. It's a fairer deal for poorer people. And on the same flip side of that coin, while they're using terms like Marxist, communist, Stalinist, and Leninist and all that kind of thing, for Corbyn, they're calling Johnson Boris by his first name, or Bojo, even better. It's a nickname. And they're giving you this image that he's lovable. He's a likable guy. He's one of you. He's one of the lads. He's going to come around the pub and we're all going to get around a beer in and we're going to have a laugh and a good time. Boris wouldn't piss on you if he was on fire. That's the cold, hard truth of it. And it doesn't matter whether you're service, whether you're a service personnel, army, navy, air force, whether you're not, whether you just work in retail like I do. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, gay, straight. Although those subjects notwithstanding, because Boris has said some horrible remarks about black people and Jewish people. I see. Don't see the media all over that. They're all right over there. And yeah, he's fine, by the way. You don't see, the media all over that about Boris saying that Jewish people are greedy in a novel that he wrote. And he said that one of the black characters in his book got what he deserved because he was a nigger, if you excuse my language. You won't see that. Because the media is heavily biased towards Boris. So this has been a very long video. But thank you for watching. Let's not fall into the trap of the media trying to drum up this idea that Boris is likeable, he's a lovely guy. Thanks for watching. I shall see you in the next video.